Thank you so much. Thank you, IFA Galaxy, for giving me this opportunity of sharing my thoughts. I'll share my thoughts from my own personal experience. We've had some very illustrious speakers since morning, and they've also shared a lot from my presentation, I feel. But still, let me see what best I can do. See, every great design begins with an even greater story. So let me start by telling you some stories. How many of you invest in startups? I'm sure a lot of people do or they want to do. I'm giving you this option. This is a startup. Penetration level less than 5%, growth rate 20% CAGR, operating profit margin of greater than 70%, working capital required virtually nil, break-even point less than 1 year, and you can start this in a month. Would you like to do it? I think not all of us are doing it. This is what is our business. These are the statistics of our business. We're looking at startups outside, but these are the startups which are available with us today. Let's plan for 100x growth in 10 years. People have been talking about 10x, 5x, 20x. Let's plan for 100x in 10 years. And there's a saying which says, if people haven't laughed at your dreams, then you aren't dreaming big enough. Just keep pushing forward. That is something which is important. Some men see things and ask why. Others dream things and ask why not. So today, we're going to ask why not. So let's understand how to grow the business. The first thing is, what has got us here is not going to get us there. That is something which is very, very clear. We need to make some very, very major changes. Why scale up? A lot of people I see are content. They don't want to scale up, which is fine. But otherwise, why should you scale up? I think the single biggest reason is because we can. Today, the markets, the economy, the country is giving us an opportunity that we can scale up, so why should we miss out on that? We all teach compounding, we all advise compounding, but do we really understand compounding? Let's say if I was to grow 100x in 10 years, I need to grow my business at around 58%. But if I'm not able to do that, but still, I can at a 25% CAGR, I can still grow 10x. At a 40% CAGR, I can grow 30x in the next 10 years. That is the power of compounding, and that is what is going to happen. And a certain amount of growth is definitely going to be there. Whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not, or whether we don't even do anything, some growth is bound to happen. But let's be prepared for that growth. Do you know that your current AUM, now this may be a shocker for a lot of people, your current AUM can be your annual income in the next 20 years. Let's say today you have an AUM of 50 crores or 100 crores. That can be your annual income in the next 20 years. That is the power. Our current trail is 0.7%. I need to grow it by 140 times, which is what? A growth of 28%. And I'm sure most of you are already doing that. I don't need to tell you how to do 28% growth. Normal 10% MTM, 1% SIP, 1% lump sum to hone wala hai. That is what is the normal thing. But this is what is going to happen. But are we ready for it? That is something which you must understand. I see a lot of people in this industry doing a personal SIP. They do a personal SIP of let's say 1 lakh rupees, 1.5 lakh rupees, 2-3 lakh रुपया साल महीने का आता है, 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh rupees का SIP करते हैं. What is going to happen with that? You'll grow a corpus of around, let's say 10 crores in 18 years at 12%. But what if I tell you that why don't you invest this amount in your business? Let's say if you invest 1,50,000 in your business, approximately 30,000 rupees for an office, you take 3 people, 90,000, 80,000 rupees for those 3 people, some miscellaneous costs, some other costs. The total investment is 1,50,000 rupees a month. And if they do, those 3 people and you can do a SIP of 2,50,000 rupees a month, which is what? 10,000 rupees each, 25 SIPs, and a 25 lakh rupees or a 3 CR of lump sum every year. What will happen? In 18 years, your total SIP book will be 5.4 CR, your total AUM will be 1,500 CR, and total income per year will be 10 CR. Now that is 10 CR that you do through SIP will be a one-time thing. You will create a corpus, but out here, You are going to be doing 10 CR every year. This is what we teach compounding to everybody. We tell everybody that please invest for the long term. This is what will happen and that is what will happen. It is like we all pray for, there's a village in which everybody was praying for rain, but only one person carried an umbrella. Are we carrying that umbrella? We are not. So that is something which we need to do. What are the reasons for not scaling up? I meet a lot of MFDs, I talk to them, a lot of reasons. And I think one of the major reasons is contentment. But apart from that, there's a lack of conviction maybe. No experience in running a business, lack of confidence in handling a team, next generation not interested. We come up with all kinds of reasons. But are those reasons really valid? Is something which you need to understand. Let's ask some important questions before we get on whether we should scale up or we should not scale up. What are the questions? What business are we in? What is the purpose of your business? What are the challenges in this business? Does the business offer growth opportunities? Comparative analysis of this business in developed markets. I think a lot of speakers who were there before me have answered these questions, but still, let us understand why are you in this business? Earn a livelihood maybe, source of passive income, help clients, all kinds of reasons are there. Good growth prospects, all these reasons are there. But are we growing, really growing this business? Are we investing in this business? Or are we allowing it to happen just like this? Let's start doing an exercise. Where are we today? What is my AUM? What is my SIP? Number of clients, families, team members? And then I should rank myself on my processes. SOPs, do I have the SOPs? Do I have the verticals that I want to be in? The solutions that I need to offer? Do I have the reserves and surplus I've created in the business? Do I have the necessary skill set? And have I done the right amount of automation or no? First, let us understand where are we today. And then where do we want to reach in the next 3, 5, 10, 15 years? Like I said, I want to do 100x in the next 10 years. Please write it down. You may want to do 100, 10, 20, 50. First, write it down. Whatever gets written gets done. How will you reach there? Are you ready for the next level of growth? Do you have an abundance mindset? I think this is very important. Or do you have a scarcity mindset? Do you have clear vision and mission? Do you have the skill set? Prioritize your resources like time, skills, funds, etc. Do you have a business plan? Have you prepared an operations manual? Because as you will grow, you'll need to standardize everything. So you need to do all those kind of things. First, ask yourself, what is your source of value? Why should the customer come to you? Is it because of convenience? Is it you manage the behavior very well? Are you process-oriented? You can generate an alpha. You are a trusted advisor, like somebody said yesterday. Are you the postman? Or are you the person who's on the speed dial of your clients? Do you have the right technology or the right brand? Sometimes people also go for the brand. So you ask yourself why people are coming to you, or why should people come to you? So what will be required to reach the 100x that we're talking about? First is, are you investing for continuous growth? Whatever is our income, this should be actually the kind of standard that we should follow. 10% of our total gross income should be going towards office expenses, 20% towards staff, CRM 5, marketing 5, learning and upskilling 5, travel 5, business SIP to create a reserve is 10%, investment for new offices and new verticals. Let's say you want to get into AIF. You want to hire a person for that. You want to hire a specialist for that. You want to learn yourself. So you need to invest for that. And then your personal withdrawal should be 30%. But what is typically happening is personal withdrawal 70%, balance possibly 30% we are investing in this. But if that is the case, you will have 10 CR at the end of 18 years. You won't have 10 CR every year at the end of 18 years. So, but firstly, are we in the right business? The India growth story, I think a lot of people said about that. I'll just say one thing. This is the AMFI vision document which was prepared in 2024 by PwC. This just says one thing. The total AUM fund growth in the next 20, 22 years is going to be 50x. But the figure which is very important is The distributors and RIAs are only going to grow 5x. The distributors will only multiply by 5 times, but the AUM will multiply by 50 times. So are we ready for that? There's a long way to go for all of us. We know what kind of digitization which has happened. This is again a study from the AMFI website. 46% of clients and mutual fund clients don't have a SIP. 57% of the investors are only invested in one AMC. Most SIP installments remain unchanged. 44% of investors have exposure in only one scheme. B30 locations have increased from 14% to 22% in the last 5 years. So are we there in the B30 locations or not? Because that is where the growth is coming from. Women investors have jumped from 18 lakh to 79 lakh. That has been the kind of jump which has been there from March 2017 to March 2024. And today their corpus is 7.5 lakh crores. Almost 25% of the total equity corpus is women. Are we targeting women investors or no? There are 8 lakh clients who have not restarted their SIP. And out of 23.5 million new investors, 14.9 million were millennials, and Gen Z, what somebody was talking about earlier. And we don't know how to target them. So let's get prepared for this. I'll just skip this. I just say one thing. If the industry will grow 50x by 2047, how do we grow 500x? That is something which is very, very important. And I'll share how we are doing it. Possibly, there is something which can be learned or adopted by you. This has been our journey. Over the years, we started in 2017. This is how we've grown. We've had a CAGR of 45%. And next, by 2035, in the next 10 years, we are talking about 20,000, which will be a minimum amount that we want to do, 20,000 CR. That is what we want to do. And that is how we will grow. But an interesting thing you'll find is that in the last 1 year, approximately last 1 year, we've grown by almost 50% when there has been no MTM. And why has this happened is only because of our processes, only because of our systems, only because we built a team, only because we have an office, only because we've automated a lot of things, something that we'll talk about going forward. And in 2035, we're talking about a gross income of 100 CR. Madhu ma'am was earlier saying that we can expect a 5x valuation of gross income. So possibly the valuation of my firm will be 500 CR by then. That is the kind of valuation that you can create. So analyze your existing business first. Do you have the right solutions? Are you offering the right solutions to the clients or no? Or are you just doing plain product selling? What problem are you solving? What or why? Why should your person invest, or what should he be doing? That is something which you need to ask. Whom are you representing, client or manufacturers? Madhu ma'am was saying earlier, please don't represent the manufacturer. Please don't do product selling. Give a solution. Which side of the table are you sitting on? Are you a product seller or a solution provider? How is the client perceiving you? When you go to meet a client, what does he say? Oh, today, so Mr. Padmanabhan has come. I'm sure he'll add something of value to me today. I'll gain something from him. Or does he say, "Arey yaar, Mr. Padmanabhan, aage, abhi 1 ghanta bahut dimag khayenge." How is he perceiving you? How do you seek attention, quality or quantity? I see a lot of people just bombarding social media with all kinds of messages, which is of no use, I feel. Are you taking a pull or a push? Are you pushing your products or your solutions to the clients, or the clients are being pulled in, by the kind of work that you're doing? Do you know your clients beyond KYC? KYC is a very simple thing, but do we understand their pain points? Do we understand their aspirations? Do we understand what he actually needs? Like the postman example which was given yesterday, do we really know what our client wants? So how will we strengthen our business and achieve? These are the basic things: people, process, technology, infra, new solutions. Shift from AUM to GUM. GUM is goals under management. Shift from AUM growth to unit capital growth. How many units am I selling? And build a brand. Very, very important, build a brand. Write your elevator pitch. This is an exercise we did recently. Elevator pitches, let's say if you meet somebody in an elevator, which is what, 30, 40, 50 seconds, 1 minute. So how will you pitch yourself? So write down your elevator pitch. It will give you a lot of clarity. We ran a competition in our office of our team members. We actually ran a competition where we asked them to pitch. And we gave a prize to the best possible pitch. So this is one pitch. You must try and do this exercise. Second is, what is your favorite selling story? I'll tell you, apart from what SEBI tells us not to do, but generally, earlier what I used to do, my favorite selling story used to be, okay, fine, you give me 15,000 rupees per month for 15 years and then take 50,000 rupees for the rest of your life and you'll have 1 CR in your account. That was my favorite selling story. Why? Because 15,000, 15 years, 15% is 1 CR. So once you have 1 CR, you take a 6% withdrawal, which is 50,000 rupees a month, right? And so you'll get a 50,000 rupees per month for the rest of your life and you'll have a 1 CR always available with you. So that used to be a selling story which I used to use. So I'm not saying use this. SEBI won't allow us to use this now anyway. But what I'm saying is make your own selling story. What is going to be your most important thing that you will do? So let us understand what we require to reach there. Let's do some business planning. Why, where, when, how will we do? Like Warren Buffett says, an idiot with a plan can beat a genius without a plan. So let's do some business planning. First thing is, let's do a SWOT analysis. So this is what we did. We did our own SWOT. The Sahayak SWOT, we call it. What are our strengths? So these are our strengths. You do your own SWOT and see what are your strengths. And I'm sure you'll come to something. What are our weaknesses? As a business, what are our weaknesses going forward? Current weaknesses and going forward, what will be our weaknesses? What are the opportunities which are there in the market? And what are the threats which are there? So let's do a SWOT first to understand what changes do I need to do. Then prepare a vision statement. This is our vision statement, what we've done. So this is a vision statement that we prepared for ourselves. Prepare a mission statement. What is your mission statement? What are you aiming for? This is our mission statement. What are the values and beliefs that we have? Client first always. And it's not only for paper, we believe in it. We'll not give a solution to a client. I'll tell you, going forward, I'll show you something which will possibly help you understand how we implement that. These are the values and beliefs that we have. These are our core values. This is the process that we follow with every client. We meet and understand. These are the 4 or 5 stages that we do. This is the investment journey that we made a client go through. And this is a complete process, like I said, how we approaching each client, how we going about it. And then we identify things that we will not do. We reduce choice. Like for example, we understand one thing, that not everyone is our customer. Everybody cannot be my customer, nor can I offer a solution to everybody. Then you identify products that you will not sell. Just for example, I'm saying, like we don't sell ULIPs, because we feel that they don't provide value. So we don't do that. We don't sell, endowment funds, endowment plans. We feel that, that is not the right solution for the client. Processes we will not follow. Skills we shall not look for in our team. We don't want a guy who's too street smart, who may, play very, very smart with the client. We don't want that. We want a person who will go to a client and promise, possibly less and deliver more. So that is what we are looking at. Things we shall not do to advance our business. Like for example, a lot of times, there are certain people who come to us and said, okay, fine, I can introduce you to this man. He wants to invest this much amount of money, what will I get? He's looking for a commission and we say, okay, sorry, we are not in this business for this. This is not the way we work. But these are the things that we will not do. So there is no question about it. So we're not wasting time on that. Like for example, we don't invest in NFOs unless it's a new category or a new niche. We don't invest in these kind of funds. We don't pursue the best performing funds as the performances change. We don't invest in fads and current fancies. These are the things that we won't do. We won't do physical investing. A client who comes to me and says, I want to do physical investing, sorry, I'll only do digital. I will not do piecemeal investing. I only do goal-based investing. Because piecemeal investing, he'll withdraw very soon. So I don't do that. And what are the solutions, the products that we will offer? These are the products and these are the solutions that we will offer. So we've decided all that this is what we're going to do. Then finally create a brand and a logo. Now this is our brand, Sahayak Associates. Then we have this financial wheel. We call it the 3I concept. 3I is first I for insurance, second investment, and third inheritance. Yesterday somebody was talking about inheritance and estate planning because it is very, very important. We also feel it's a very, very important thing. And this is something which complements our business and completes our business. So we do it. Then our mascot. We've created a mascot called Mr. Sahayak. And our byline, your personal family CFO. We call ourselves your personal family CFO. And another important thing, whatever brand you finalize and all these things that you do, get a trademark registration done for your brand and logos. Something which is very, very important. That is something which you must do. Customers want to see the 3 C's in branding. Communication, continuity, and consistency. You can't be talking about one thing at one time and something else the next time. So write down a business plan first. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Where do you want to go? What will be your AUM in 5 years? Number of clients, SIP, insurance board, team size, number of offices, which new verticals? In 5 years, current, what is it? 5 years, where will you be? 10 years, where will you be? In 2047, Amrit Kal, 22 years or 20 years, whatever, where will you be? Please write it down. As I said, what gets written gets done. Create an organization. These are the kind of, verticals that you'll need in your organization. These are the kind of specializations that you need in an organization, and get an MSME registration done. Very important. There are a lot of benefits that you get out of an MSME registration. Then diversify. We tell all our clients that they must diversify. We tell clients that, you need to be in these different asset classes. But do we diversify our own business? Do we have different income streams? That is something which you need to do. Client segments. Are we in each client segment? By gender, by age, I'll show you going forward. Asset classes. Like somebody was mentioning AIFs, SIFs, PMS, debt products, all kinds, insurance, estate planning. Are you there in all these asset classes or no? What are the kind of products that you're offering? Geographical spread. 40% of our business comes from the Chandigarh Tri-City. The balance business comes from outside. Like because we are totally digital, we have clients spread all over the world. So we've targeted, okay, what percentage of business do we want from which side, which area? Then skill sets. My team should have different skill sets. So that is the kind of thing, diversification that we need to do. Then finally, standardize. Standardize everything. Have SOPs for every bloody thing. Right from prospecting. When I'm prospecting, what is the message which will go to each prospect? What is the graphic which will go? Otherwise what is going to happen today with AI, everybody is sending different things. Whether it aligns with my values or with my process or no, I don't know. So what I've done is I've standardized everything. So that is something which we do. That is how, and do a lot of detailing. The devil lies in the detail. Automate operations. Reduce client involvement in process and operations. The more you automate, the more you'll find the things that get done. Digitize, no manual operations. Develop pro tools for everything. Let's say you want to do a need assessment of the financial roles. Develop a tool for it. Whatever process, whatever work you want to do, whatever communication that you want to have with the client, develop a pro tool for that. There are already pro tools which are available in the market. You can possibly go and get those pro tools. Then predefine the planning and review process. Follow schedules. A lot of times we define the process, but we don't follow it. That is something which we need to do. We need to ensure that it's being implemented properly. So we've created an operations manual. I don't have that operations manual with me today, but I can share it if you want. We have a complete operations manual for each aspect. It is not only, there's a rolling business plan which is there. There's a SOP and operations manual. The HR hiring and team building process. The induction process of a person who joins the team. What is the marketing and social? Everything it has to be predefined. Very simple. If I have to grow 100x, I need to do things differently. If I want to do that extraordinary thing, I need to do that little thing, little extra. That is something which is important. What are the growth drivers that are going to be there for my business? So we've identified these growth drivers. There's something called the daily SIP. I came to know about this daily SIP some years ago. At a conference like this, somebody said that he visited a client, a vegetable seller. And he was talking to him about a daily SIP, that why don't you do it instead of an RD? So he said, I was talking to the couple, the husband and wife, and after the entire talk, okay, the wife said, fine, let's do it. So he said, okay, how much? So she said, 5,000. She said, I thought she was saying 5,000 rupees a month, but she was saying 5,000 rupees a day. Now that is the potential of the daily SIP. So we made a target that I have to have a 5 lakh rupees daily SIP in the next 2 years. If I then do a 5 lakh rupee daily SIP in the next 2 years, it will be a 1 CR SIP per month. So for that, what do I need to do? So that has to become a growth driver. So these are the things that I've said. Now we do some things on the special occasion. Like for example, Diwali is very big in the north. So there's the Muhurat trade which happens. So every year, we do approximately 2 CR lump sum on a Muhurat trade. On a birthday, we send a graphic to a client which says, if you had invested 5 years ago, this is what would have happened. And why don't you invest today? So these are the special occasions that gold SIP we were doing 2 years, 3 years ago. We had told everybody, why don't you do gold has to be X% of your total portfolio. So that is how the business growth came. These are the things that we keep on doing. I'm running out of time, so I'll need to rush a bit. And similarly, new verticals. Plan for the new verticals in the next 3, 5, 10 years. When are each of the verticals going to come? How are they going to come? So these are the new verticals that we want to start, and growth income streams that we want to start. Again, let's define our ideal client. A lot of people don't know who's their ideal client. Whom do they want to target? They'll start social media marketing without knowing whom they want to target. So this is, what is the ideal client mix? This is my ideal client mix. Gender, by age, by region, by profession, by income levels. I need to have a diversified client base. If I have only retirees, then what will happen? If I have only millennials, what will happen? So I need to have a diversified client base. So this is what we did. We did this analysis of our business. We said, okay, the current SIP, what is this percentage of SIP, which is, or the number of clients who have 0 SIP. Number of clients who have 1 to 5,000 and so on, So we came to a figure. Then I said, okay, what should be my target? And then what is the gap? So I start identifying the gap and targeting that. Similarly, AUM. Out of my total clients, age. Like age-wise, what is the contribution by each age, and what do I want it to be? Then accordingly I do it. Again, AUM range, 0 to 5 lakhs, 5 to 10 lakhs. What is it currently? Where do I want to be? That is something which we do. Then by gender, male, female, others, which means corporates and HUFs and all that. What is it and what do I want it to be? And that is how I identify my ideal client or my target segment or my prospect. It is not that koi bhi aa jayega. So that is something which we do. Similarly, city-wise, what is this contribution of each? Today we are in 100 cities, we had checked. What is the contribution of each city? What do I want it to be? So I target, I plan accordingly. Similarly, NRI. Now that the GIFT City route has opened, we can really welcome NRIs to come and invest here. It's a wonderful opportunity. We've already been to Dubai 2 times to try and tap the NRI market there. And we've got some wonderful results from there. We need to go there. The first time we went, nothing happened. Second time we went, yes, something happened. Now we're planning a 3rd trip. I'm sure something more will happen. So that is what it is. So again, do you have the right team? What values and skills do you want in your team? First is, why build a team? Somebody was talking earlier about the value of your money. They say, why build a team is, when do you create wealth? You create wealth when you start buying what you are selling. What are we selling? We are selling a time. I want to earn 1 CR a year. I have 2,000 hours in a year. We don't have more than 2,000 hours in a year. And what is the value of my per hour? It is 5,000 rupees an hour. The work, what is the work I am doing? I am trying to download or create a graphic on Canva and send it, which is taking me 1 hour. A work which can be done by, if I can outsource it, it can be done by somebody and he'll charge 500 rupees. So why am I doing that? So that is something which I need to do. A passive income, team will give you passive income. It's an hourly rate. As I say, you don't build a business. You build people and then people build your business. So are you building the right kind of people? Build a team. Make yourself redundant to the organization. That is the only way you will grow. Hire the best. If you hire people bigger than you, you'll become a company of giants. If you hire people smaller than you, you'll become a company of dwarfs. And like Colonel Govila was saying yesterday, if you pay peanuts, you'll only get monkeys. So you have to pay them the best. So these are the things that we do, to do. And what are the things that we don't want in our employees? It comes later what we want, but this is what we don't want in our employees. And what do we look for in our employees? As they say, you don't hire skill. Hire attitude, skill can be developed. Hire values, skill can be developed. The person should have the right kind of value. Set growth parameters. These are the growth parameters which should be there. And finally, I'll come to the summary of the things you should do. Write down a business plan, make a vision and mission statement, standardize everything, identify things which you will not do, build a team, diversify, learn and upskill, adopt strategies, set growth parameters. What is the extra that you're doing? The lollipop moment which was talked about yesterday, that is something which you need to do. And remember, this is what the basic thing that you must do is 40 client meetings every month, active clients 200 families, loyal clients 100 family. The 100th client that you have, the SIP amount should be 25,000 rupees minimum. The top client AUM to be 100 times the 100th client. A minimum 1% SIP book, 1% net sales every month, 10 hours of reading and learning every week, employee retention of 60 to 80%, and client servicing 2 hours per day. You do this, and let me tell you, boss, 100x in the next 10 years may be too little. Act now. Get your dopamine from action, not just from learning. That is the biggest problem that all of us have. Once we've done the learning, we feel the job's done. But the results will come if we act, if you take action, if you take off a week from now, right? And write down your business plan. Take a week off. Go to an offsite. Write down your business plan. Write down, do the detailed planning. So that is what is something which is important. Past was all about product. Present is about service. The future will be about experience. So what is the little extra that you're doing? And you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You need to be one who shows up, who is true to their word, who can figure it out, who does the boring things well, who takes the pride in their work, who is reliable, who says no, because old-fashioned things never go out of style. Raise the bar, be the ambassador of the MFD community for Viksit Bharat. Thank you so much.